to buy Ethan his dream VIP World Cup tickets. I worked myself to the bone, pulling endless overtime for 3 months straight to secure my project bonus. But when I finally grabbed those tickets and ran home to surprise him, he was standing in the living room holding a cat. Ava, you need to pet sit Cleo for the next few days. Chloe and I are flying out for the World Cup. I clenched the tickets hidden in my coat pocket. My chest tightened as I stared at him. Ethan, you already went with her to the last 2 World Cups. Why her again? Ethan's face hardened. This is Chloe's birthday wish this year. Come on, Ava, be reasonable. I promise I'll take you next time. I didn't say another word. I turned around, tore the VIP tickets in half, and tossed them right into the trash. He had no idea. There was never going to be a next time. We were supposed to get our marriage license at City Hall right after he got back from the World Cup. But looking at him now, a breakup seemed a hell of a lot better than a future divorce. I didn't even look up at him. My voice was ice cold. Did you forget? My birthday wish this year was also to go to the World Cup with you. You're my fiancée, Ava. I'm with you every single day. But Chloe is different. She's going through a hard time and I barely get to see her. His tone grew sharper, annoyed that I was pushing back. My heart felt like a flatline. I looked him dead in the eye. Out of the 3 of us, I'm always the outsider, aren't I? Ethan's jaw clenched. Are you seriously getting jealous again? Stop acting like this. Chloe and I grew up together. I've told you 1,000 times, we are just friends. It's completely platonic. Plus, we are literally getting married next month. Do you really not trust me at all? Ava, you are making me so exhausted. He pinched the bridge of his nose. Every single time we argued about Chloe, he put on this exact same exhausted show. I kept my face expressionless. I'm exhausted too. I added. If you're so used to having Chloe by your side, then go with her. I don't care anymore. Ethan froze for a second. Seeing that I wasn't screaming or crying, he assumed I was backing down like I always did. He let out a sigh of relief. Don't overthink it, babe. I'll bring you back a nice souvenir. The cat in his arms jumped down and ran over to my suitcase. Ethan cleared his throat. Chloe's family is out of town, and my parents can't stand cat hair. She couldn't find anyone else to watch Cleo last minute. Just watch her for a bit, okay? Thanks, babe. She gets my man, and I get her cat. Fucking hilarious. Suddenly, Ethan's phone buzzed. I didn't need to look to know it was Chloe. Before heading into the study to take the call, he threw a casual order over his shoulder. The cat's been meowing. She's probably hungry. Chloe says Cleo only eats steamed sea bass. Make sure you prep some for her. After 12 years together, he spoke to me like I was his hired maid. Without waiting for my reply, he walked into the study and shut the door. I ignored the cat, dragged my packed suitcase to the corner, and set it down. My company had given me 3 days to transition my work before my transfer. In 3 days, I would be leaving this city. I would also be leaving Ethan, the man I had loved for 12 years. As I walked past the study, I heard Ethan on a FaceTime call with Chloe. Chloe's high-pitched giggles leaked through the door. Ethan's voice was filled with smug confidence. Ava and I have been together for 12 years. She's not going to make a scene. Just pack your bags and enjoy the game with me. I froze in the hallway. My blood ran cold. From age 18 to 30, my entire youth belonged to him. I was the perfect, understanding fiancé his friends always praised. Even when we fought over Chloe, I never let anyone else know. I saved his pride every single time. And that pride became the exact weapon he used to step all over me. A cold smirk crept onto my face. Ethan, I am never playing by your rules again. While packing the rest of my personal things, I realized one of my lavender-infused sleep pillows was missing. I've always had terrible anxiety and insomnia due to work stress. My grandmother had traveled all the way to Vermont on a long Greyhound bus, just to get me 2 custom, organic sleep pillows from an old artisan shop. On her way back, she was killed in a tragic car accident. Those pillows were the last, most precious things she ever gave me. Ethan was putting on his coat, getting ready to head out. I stopped him. Have you seen my other sleep pillow? The lavender one from my grandmother. Ethan thought for a second. Check the guest room. Chloe stayed there last week. If it's not there, it might be at her apartment. We had lived in this apartment for 7 years. At first we rented, then we bought it. I had wanted a cozy 1-bedroom, but Ethan insisted on a 2-bedroom, claiming friends might need to crash. But in 7 years, he had never let a single male friend sleep over. Even when they were dead drunk, he would always book them a hotel. The guest room was used exclusively by Chloe. And every single time she stayed over, she was too drunk to drive. I had told Ethan a million times to call her an Uber, or get her a hotel. But he always said, it's not safe for a drunk girl to sleep alone in a hotel. He knew it drove me crazy. He knew I hated it. Yet he let her sleep under our roof night after night. Usually, he'd just bring her home first and tell me later. Later, because I kept fighting him on it, he even installed a security camera in the living room. His excuse? See, The camera proves we are clean. We have nothing to hide. Our apartment didn't just have a dedicated bedroom for Chloe. Her personal belongings were scattered everywhere. Her lipsticks on our counter, her socks in our laundry, her jewelry, and sometimes even her underwear. In the past, I would have thrown a massive fit. But today, I just calmly walked into the guest room. The pillow wasn't there. Without saying a word, I grabbed my car keys and drove straight to Chloe's apartment. When Chloe opened the door, she looked shocked. "Ava, what are you doing here? This is literally the first time you've ever visited my place." She smiled, inviting me in. "I'm here for my sleep pillow." Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second. She turned toward the kitchen. "Let me get you some water." I knew she was grabbing her phone to text Ethan and play the victim. "Don't bother. I'm leaving as soon as I get my pillow." She walked back, rubbing her temples as if she couldn't remember where it was. "Why don't you check the second bedroom on the right? Ethan slept there the other night." My heart did a painful flip. I had no idea Ethan had been sleeping over at her place. As I walked down her hallway, I noticed her balcony. Hanging on the drying rack, right next to Chloe's lace underwear, were Ethan's boxer shorts. Chloe noticed my gaze. She casually shrugged. "Oh, that. Ethan got totally wasted last night. He threw up all over himself and me. I had to wash his clothes." It sounded like an explanation, but her eyes were dripping with pure provocation. In the past, she wasn't this obvious. She used to cry and swear that they were just like siblings. But lately she had dropped the act. Now she was looking at me with a smirk that said, "What are you going to do about it?" She was waiting for me to lose my mind, to scream at her, to make a scene so Ethan could come rescue his sweet, innocent best friend. But I just nodded calmly. "I see." I looked away and noticed a bag of Ethan's favorite coffee beans on her kitchen counter. Just like we had Chloe's organic protein shakes in our kitchen. I was shockingly calm. Chloe's smile faded into disappointment. She was annoyed that I wasn't exploding. I followed her into the bedroom. The moment I stepped in, my eyes landed on the wall above her bed. It was covered in a heart-shaped collage of photos of her and Ethan. Some were casual Polaroids, others were professional, high-end studio portraits. Right in the center was a large framed photo. Chloe was wearing a white satin slip dress with a matching tulle veil, holding Ethan's hand as they ran through a park. He was in a sleek suit. It wasn't a wedding photo, but it sure as hell looked like one. Ethan's smile in every single photo was radiant. He looked happier than he ever did with me. Chloe stood next to me, staring at the wall. "Ethan and I have so many beautiful memories together. Since we were kids." I felt nothing. When your heart is completely dead, pain ceases to exist. "They are indeed beautiful," I said quietly. She turned to me, a malicious glint in her eyes. "Ava, do you want to join us next time?" I let out a soft, mocking laugh. She was trying to remind me that no matter how long I was with Ethan, I was just a temporary placeholder in their lifelong romance. I looked her in the eyes. "A game is fun with two people, Chloe. 3 just makes it crowded." I didn't want to waste another second. "Where is my pillow?" Chloe's expression soured. She marched over to her closet, pulling things out with dramatic sighing. "Honestly, Ethan is so careless. He always leaves his things in random places. I really need to give him a piece of my mind." I stood there, watching her little show. She pulled out a pile of Ethan's clothes from her closet, including his t-shirts and hoodies. "Don't get the wrong idea, Ava," Chloe giggled. "Ethan only crashes here maybe 7 nights a month. Guys just need their space sometimes, you know? Especially when you're traveling for work. He's just lazy. He likes coming here because I spoil him and do everything for him." Every single word was a slap in my face. "I don't care what you two do," I said. "Just give me my pillow." Chloe bit her lip, clearly frustrated by my lack of reaction. She violently whipped open her bedsheets. There, sitting on her bed, was her pink silk bedding. And right next to her pillow was an open box of ultra-thin condoms. She paused, waiting for me to break down. "I just checked my watch. I have a flight to catch. Hurry up." "Fine. Let's check the walk-in closet," she snapped. I followed her. An open suitcase was sitting on the floor. Inside were Chloe's summer clothes, and resting right on top was a brand new, unopened box of the exact same ultra-thin condoms. Chloe smirked. "I'm packing for tomorrow. Ethan and I are so excited for the game." When I didn't say anything, she added, "The World Cup only happens once every 4 years, Ava. Everyone wants a seat, but the seats are limited. If you weren't invited to the game, no matter how hard you squeeze, you'll never fit in." My patience finally ran out. My voice went cold as ice. "I am only here for my pillow. As for Ethan, you can keep him. I'm throwing him in the trash." Chloe gasped, quickly trying to look innocent. "Ava, what are you talking about? Don't say things like that. I was just talking about soccer." "My pillow," I demanded, stepping closer. She rolled her eyes. "Oh right. I remember now. Follow me." She led me to a third room, which had been converted into a luxury room for her cat, Cleo. The moment I walked in, I saw it. My white and mint green custom sleep pillow was sitting inside the cat litter box, completely soaked in cat urine and covered in feces. The putrid smell hit my nose instantly. My blood boiled. That was my grandmother's last gift. Chloe put on her best baby voice. Oh my gosh, Ava, I'm so sorry. Cleo is just so playful. It's just a pillow though. I'll buy you a better one on Amazon. Ethan really shouldn't have left it where the cat could reach it. Slap. I swung my hand and slapped Chloe across the face so hard she stumbled backward. You did that on purpose. I screamed. Ava. A sharp roar came from the doorway. Ethan rushed in, immediately grabbing Chloe and checking the red mark on her cheek. Chloe burst into tears, clinging to his chest. Ethan, don't yell at Ava. It's my fault. Ethan glared at me, his eyes furious. It's just a damn pillow, Ava. Are you insane? My eyes were red with rage. I stepped up and slapped Ethan across the face too. Yes, I am. Ethan's face twisted in shock. He stared at me, holding his cheek. Ava, what the hell is wrong with you? What's wrong is that I wasted 12 years of my life loving a piece of trash like you. We are done, Ethan. I turned on my heel and walked out. He screamed after me down the hallway, stop throwing a tantrum, Ava. The next day, after finalizing everything at my office, I dragged my suitcase toward the airport terminal. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Chloe. I ordered 10 new pillows for you on Amazon. They should arrive in a couple of days. Also, Ethan and I are boarding our flight. Cleo is very sensitive, so I made a Google Doc with her feeding schedule and care instructions. Just follow it. Then came a text from Ethan. I'll be back on the 9th. We'll go straight to City Hall to get our marriage license. The smell of the airport terminal was always the same. Stale coffee, ozone from the air conditioning, and the faint, chemical tang of aviation fuel drifting from the tarmac. Ava sat at the boarding gate, her leather bag resting against her boots. The heavy, gold-crested passport folder she had bought to hold their travel documents sat in her lap, empty save for her own one-way ticket to Chicago. Her phone vibrated in her hand. I didn't open the messages from Chloe or Ethan. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what they contained. Chloe's smug, patronizing domestic schedule for her cat, and Ethan's casual, entitled assumption that a 12-year relationship could be patched up with a signature at City Hall. I tapped the screen, opened the contact list, and selected Ethan's mother, Helen Danes. Helen had always been a blunt, traditional woman who tolerated me only because I handled her son's domestic life without asking for her help. I sent her a brief, polite text. Helen, I've moved out of the apartment. Ethan and Chloe have gone to the World Cup together. Since Chloe's cat, Cleo, cannot be left alone and your son has left her in our living room, I have hired a professional pet boarding service to collect her. The invoice has been charged to the joint household card. The keys are with the building concierge. Within 10 seconds, my phone began to buzz with Helen's name. I didn't answer. I blocked her number, then blocked Ethan, Chloe, and every mutual friend we shared. Then I opened my email and sent a single pre-drafted message to my attorney, Sarah Lynn. Sarah, I have boarded the flight. The physical transition is complete. Please initiate the partition lawsuit for the apartment immediately. I want my 50% share of the equity liquidated, and I want a full forensic audit of our joint accounts for the past 3 years. Do not accept any out-of-court settlements that do not involve a public sale of the property. The gate agent's voice crackled over the loudspeaker. Group 1 boarding for Flight 204 to Chicago O'Hare. Please have your boarding passes ready. I stood up, adjusted the strap of my bag over my shoulder, and walked toward the jet bridge. The weight of 12 years, the endless overtime, the cold dinners, the lavender-scented pillows, and the quiet, suffocating loneliness of being the perfect, understanding fiancé felt remarkably light as it slid off my shoulders and remained behind on the airport carpet. I didn't look back. The VIP suite at the Lusail Stadium in Qatar was a glittering box of brass and glass smelling of expensive cologne, roasted nuts, and hot sand. Ethan stood near the glass railing, a cup of imported lager in his hand, his eyes fixed on the green pitch below where the players were warming up. It was the match he had dreamed of for years, the one he had dropped hints about every holiday season. But his chest felt tight. Ethan, honey, look. Chloe's voice was high and sweet as she walked over from the bar, her face flushed with excitement as she held up a signed team jersey. The corporate sponsor in the next box just gave me this. Isn't it amazing? Ethan didn't look at the jersey. Yeah. Great, Chloe. What's wrong with you? She pouted, her lips curving into the familiar, childish grimace she used whenever he wasn't paying enough attention to her. You've been staring at your phone since we landed. Ava probably already fed Cleo. She's always so organized. Ethan didn't answer. He unlocked his phone, his thumb hovering over the chat screen with Ava. The last message he had sent, the one about getting the marriage license on the 9th, still sat there with a single gray checkmark. Unread. He had tried calling her 4 times during the layover in London, but the call had gone straight to a recorded operator's voice. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. Suddenly, his phone vibrated. It wasn't a text from Ava. It was a notification from his banking app. Transaction declined. $4,500 at the Ritz-Carlton Doha. Reason: insufficient funds/account locked. Ethan froze. What? He tapped the app, his fingers shaking as he logged into his primary checking account, the joint account he shared with Ava, where he kept his salary and their wedding savings. The balance was exactly zero. Every cent of their shared savings, exactly 50% of the account value, calculated down to the last penny, had been withdrawn the previous morning by Ava. The remaining 50%, which belonged to Ethan, had been frozen by a legal injunction filed by a law firm named Lynn & Associates. A second notification popped up on his screen, an email from his real estate agent. Subject: urgent partition lawsuit filed for Unit 8B, Riversedge Apartments. Dear Mr. Miller, we have received a formal court summons from your co-owner Ava Bennett. She is petitioning for a forced judicial sale of the property to liquidate her 50% equity share. Under state law, the court will appoint a receiver to sell the property at public auction if an agreement is not reached within 14 days. All keyless entry codes have been legally suspended pending the appointment of the receiver. Ethan's cup slipped from his fingers, the cold beer spilling over his expensive leather shoes, but he didn't even notice. His heart was hammering against his ribs, a cold, oily sweat breaking out across his forehead. Ethan? Chloe asked, her voice rising in pitch as she noticed his pale face. What's wrong? Why is your hand shaking? She sold the house, Ethan whispered, his voice hoarse. She cleared the accounts. Who? Ava. Chloe let out a sharp, mocking laugh. Don't be ridiculous, Ethan. Ava loves you. She's been with you since high school. She's just throwing a tantrum because we didn't bring her. Once we get back, just buy her some flowers. And she's gone, Chloe, Ethan said, turning his head to look at her, noticing for the first time the subtle, cold calculation in her sweet expression that he had spent years pretending not to see. She's really gone. The office of Lynn & Associates in Chicago was bright, smelling of lemon polish and fresh paper. Ava sat across from Sarah Lynn, a sharp, middle-aged woman with dark, analytical eyes and a no-nonsense manner that immediately made Ava feel secure. The paper trail is remarkably clear, Ava, Sarah said, sliding a thick ledger across the desk. Your ex-fiancé was incredibly careless. Because he believed you would never check the statements, he used your joint credit card for almost every single personal expense he incurred with Chloe Sterling over the past 3 years. She tapped a page in the ledger. 2 plane tickets to Munich last winter. 3 hotel reservations in Aspen. Weekly dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants downtown. And a lease guarantor form for Chloe's apartment, signed using your digital signature. Without your knowledge. Ava looked at the numbers. They were large, black, and perfectly cold. Can we recover it? She asked, her voice steady. We can recover every single cent of the joint funds spent on non-household liabilities, Sarah said, her eyes flashing with a professional, sharp satisfaction. Under state law, using joint marital assets to fund a third party's personal expenses without the co-owner's consent is considered fraud. I've already filed the motion to freeze his personal accounts. The court will order full restitution from his share of the apartment sale. And the apartment? The receiver has already been appointed, Sarah said. The public auction is scheduled for next Tuesday. Since Ethan cannot afford to buy out your share, now that his accounts are frozen, the building will be sold to the highest bidder. He has 48 hours to remove his personal belongings before the locks are changed permanently. Ava looked out the window at the Chicago skyline. The sky was gray, a soft, quiet rain misting against the glass. It looked like the sky she had lived under for 7 years, but the air in this room felt different. It didn't smell of Chloe's perfume. It didn't smell of old cat food or wet lavender. It smelled of clean, cold paper. Thank you, Sarah, Ava said. The apartment on Riversedge was dark when Ethan returned on Tuesday morning. He had flown back early from Doha, leaving a furious Chloe behind in the luxury suite after his credit cards had been suspended. He had spent 24 hours in economy class, his clothes rumpled, his hair untidy, his face gray with a deep, permanent exhaustion. He tried the smart lock code on the front door. A red light flashed on the keypad, followed by a double, electronic beep. Access denied. Ethan. His mother, Helen Danes, was standing in the hallway behind him, holding her handbag. Her face was pale, her hair unkempt, her voice shaking with a mix of fury and embarrassment. The building manager let me in, she said, her voice dropping to a low hissed whisper. The police, they were here yesterday, Ethan. They served the petition papers to the building office. The neighbors. Everyone is talking about how you've been kicked out of your own home. I haven't been kicked out, Mom, Ethan yelled, his control finally snapping as he kicked the heavy oak door. It's my house. I paid the mortgage. Ava paid 70% of the down payment, Ethan. Helen snapped, her voice sharp and clinical. And she paid the property taxes. Her lawyer sent the bank statements to our house yesterday. You used her savings to buy Chloe's plane tickets. You used her grandmother's death money to pay for Chloe's apartment. She walked over, her hands shaking as she grabbed his coat. She's suing you for fraud, Ethan. The firm, your boss called your father this morning. They're launching an internal compliance audit because your name is listed on a public fraud summons. If they find out you used corporate accounts. I didn't use corporate accounts, Ethan screamed, pulling his coat away from her fingers. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his old manual key, the one he had kept in his glove compartment for emergencies, and jammed it into the lock. The door swung open with a slow, heavy creak. The living room was cold, the curtains drawn shut, the air smelling of old dust and stale lavender. Ethan walked straight to the corner of the room, his eyes fixing on the small, black security camera he had installed on the bookshelf 2 years ago to prove his innocence to Ava. He pulled his phone out, opened the camera's history app, and scrolled through the archives from the night Ava left. The screen lit up with the night vision footage. It showed Ava packing her suitcase. She was not crying. She was not throwing things. She was moving with a slow, military precision, placing her clothes, her books, and her grandmother's framed photograph into her bag. Before she zipped the suitcase shut, she walked over to the bookshelf. She stood directly in front of the camera, her face perfectly in focus, her deep blue eyes looking straight into the lens as if she were looking straight into his soul. She didn't scream. She didn't make a face. She simply reached out her left hand, the one that had worn his cheap promise ring for 7 years, and flipped the middle finger directly at the lens. Then, she pulled the power cord from the wall. The screen went black. Ethan stood in the empty living room, his phone shaking in his hand, and for the first time in 12 years, he covered his face with his palms and sobbed hysterically into the empty air. The coffee shop in downtown Chicago was quiet, smelling of warm pine wood, roasted beans, and the wet asphalt of the rainy street outside. Ava sat at a corner table, a cup of hot black tea between her hands. The door chimed and Ethan walked in. He looked completely different. He was wearing his ordinary office coat, but the collar was turned up haphazardly, and his hair was messy. He had lost weight. His face thin and hollow, his eyes shadowed with an exhausted gray pallor. He looked 38, though he was only 30. He sat down across from her, his hands clasped tightly on the wooden table to keep them from shaking. Ava, he whispered, his voice dry and rattling. Ava didn't stand up. She didn't flinch. She sat behind her cup, her face perfectly calm. What do you want, Ethan? I signed the settlement, he said, his voice dropping into a low, desperate whimper. Sarah Lynn, your lawyer. She took everything, Ava. The apartment sale is finalized. After the restitution for the joint accounts and the legal fees, I have $15,000 left in my name. I know, Ava said. The firm, they suspended me yesterday, he continued, his tears finally falling, leaving wet tracks through the dust on his cheeks. The compliance audit. They found the travel receipts I submitted under client entertainment that were actually for Chloe's flights. I'm being terminated next week. I know, Ava repeated, her voice remaining perfectly level without a single note of anger or bitterness. Sarah sent me the report. Ava, please, Ethan reached out, his hand trying to grab her fingers across the table. We were together for 12 years. I made mistakes. I was stupid. Chloe, she's gone, Ava. The moment the cards were frozen, she went back to her ex-boyfriend. She didn't even care that I was ruined. He looked at her, his eyes full of a desperate, pleading hope. Just tell me how to fix this. We can go back to the beginning. We can rent a small place. I'll work hard, I swear. Just don't leave me alone. Ava looked at his hand on the table, then slowly drew her own back, placing it in her pocket. You can't fix it, Ethan, she said softly. I can. I'll do anything. When I was 25, Ava said, her voice dropping into a quiet whisper that was louder than the city traffic outside. My grandmother died in that car accident. She had traveled 3 days on a bus just to get me those lavender pillows because she knew I couldn't sleep. She looked straight into his bloodshot eyes. And you let Chloe's cat use the last piece of her memory as a toilet. You watched her do it, Ethan. You stood in that hallway and told me it was just a pillow. Ethan froze. His hand slowly lost its strength and slipped off the table, his fingers curling inward. I'm not angry, Ethan, Ava said, standing up and wrapping her coat around her shoulders. But the 12 years are over. And this time I'm the one boarding the flight. She turned on her heel and walked out of the coffee shop, the heavy oak door closing behind her with a soft, final thud. The rain in Chicago was soft and constant, a gentle gray mist that washed the city streets clean. Ava walked down the pavement, her boots clicking softly on the stone, her chest finally loosening, the tight, cold knot of 12 years of silence finally dissolving into the quiet evening air. The sky was gray, but the road ahead of her was wide, clean, and completely her own.